All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good evening or good afternoon from whichever part of the world it is that you're joining us from. Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Forex Daily Analysis. This beautiful morning, coming to you live and direct from Nairobi, Kenya. Straight out of 254, from wherever it is that you're joining us from. I hope that you're doing well, but we're really glad that you could join us this beautiful 21st day of January 2025. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex, like we always say, is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. So we do have the rest of the team here. In case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. Of course, on the chat box, the team will get back to you, but I will also be looking at the questions, of course, also in the chat box towards the very tail end of this session. But of course, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask even as the session does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. We're going to start off by looking at the watch list. Of course, that's where we always begin. So you can see our watch list for today in comparison to what we did end up having yesterday. A couple of changes you can see right there. So we have the New Zealand dollar and the Swiss franc joining the buy side of things. So we will see how things end up going on that front. But you can start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it onto our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. Wanted the price to come back in within this region right here and possibly get some sort of a reaction of the sellers. But you can see that the reaction of the sellers that did end up coming in was not really the best. You can't quite say that there was a big boy involved in this move right here. In any case, the buyers did seem stronger than the sellers, and you can't see that the buyers continued to rally up and push the market up higher, broke to the upside, technically held above. Then you can see that the market continued moving up north. Can't see some sort of a reaction that did end up happening today. And you'll see that across the board when we end up looking at the rest of the yen pairs. But of course, when it comes to the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen, not really something that is going to be making us get excited to possibly end up looking for opportunities on it today. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. But you can't see that the market did not really end up coming to the downside yesterday. You can see that the market went up. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the market possibly coming to the downside within this region, held to the upside. You can see that the market continued rallying up, even breached this region to the upside. It's only today that the market has come back into the downside, but it's not really also something that we will be watching out for moving into today. Of course, the New Zealand dollar has moved to the buy side of things, so you could find that there could be a bit of a clash between the New Zealand dollar and the Japanese yen. So the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions there, some illustrations also of what to expect. We're expecting maybe the market to come back in within this region, but it seems that the euro yesterday was a bit too strong for the Swiss franc, and you can see that the market continued rallying up, reached this region to the upside, technically held above. Then you can see that the market continued moving to the upside. So this one worked out pretty well, but unfortunately not also a currency pair we'll be watching out for today. Of course, the Swiss franc has sweet sides. You can see that strength possibly coming in, and you could find that maybe there could be a clash between the euro and the Swiss franc on that one. So to avoid that sideways movement, we'd rather possibly end up looking for opportunities elsewhere. So last but not least, we do have the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions there that I had pointed out. Also illustrations of what to expect. Remember, I had pointed out that this market was technically in some sort of a range within this region. And so the best area to look for the buys was down here. So you can see that in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was actually somewhere within this region. Around this time yesterday, price came down, just needed to be patient. And you can see that when the market tapped in within this region, at around 11 or thereabout, during the London market open, the price did actually shoot to the upside. So there could have been some good buys there. And of course, it being a range, you can definitely see that the buying opportunities were definitely working from down here. Even earlier today, during the Asian session, but also not really something we'll be watching out for. Could find that the market could continue fooling around. If trading ranges is your thing, then I guess you possibly could end up looking for opportunities on that one. But of course, for some of us, we want things that are possibly going to be moving at least in one direction. So we can end up looking at the screenshot that we did end up getting. So this one is from Alvin. So shout out to you, Alvin, if you're watching. So this is on the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So you can see that you got some two good buying opportunities down within this region as the market was pulling back in, and of course the market really took off to the upside. You brought your stop losses above break even, which is good. But at least when the market was high up there, hopefully you did manage some of your trades. And possibly you can also end up bringing your stop loss, just a bit higher, maybe somewhere even within here, especially considering the fact that the market has already dipped within this region here and it's back up within there. At least even if having your stop loss somewhere within here, just to secure a bit more profit. So just tightening up on the money management a bit. But in terms of where you got the buys, that was really good. So shout out to you for that, Alvin, and of course, keep up the good work. So remember, guys, if you do get any trades, whether good or bad, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are there on the video description. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. We'll be more than happy to give you the much needed shout out, and of course to also give you the much needed advice that you need to make your trading that much extra bit better. So we're going to jump straight into the currency pairs for today now. So there's the watch list for today. Hopefully for the guys who joined us late, you can end up taking note of that. This is what the game plan is going to be. So we're going to start off with the yen pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side, move on to the euros, the New Zealand dollar, the Swiss franc, do the same. Then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, the game plan was to try and see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Same game plan as today. So you can see the three regions and also a bonus leveled out within this region that I had pointed out, also some illustrations of what to expect. Or maybe expecting price to possibly end up bouncing off this region to come up, or maybe if it came back in within here, we're expecting, some sort of a reaction of the sellers within there. Unfortunately, you can't see that there was no reaction of the sellers within that particular region. So the market rallied up. Remember this level at the top right here that I had pointed out that maybe in case the market finds its way there, then you should also be ready for that. So you can see that the market came back in within this region. This was during the New York Stock Exchange Open. And the market tapped within that region, and you can see that the turnaround did actually start to happen somewhere around this region right here. And of course, today during the Asian session, that's when the market has picked up a bit more steam. But it's not something that's unusual because, the Australian dollar and the Japanese yen both tend to be more active during the Asian session. So let's see if maybe the London big boys will keep that momentum coming in. So those are the three areas we will be watching out for. The levels are more or less the same. So the price is still being contained within the same region. So there isn't much of a change on that front. But let's wait and see if we can get the market pulling back. So you can see that it's exactly back within the same area that it was yesterday. So it's done a full cycle to the upside. Let's see if we can get the market maybe coming back in within this region here. If it does, then at least we possibly could try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities somewhere within this region here. But of course, looking for the sales, especially when the price is approaching this region down here, might not really be the best because you could easily run into issues with the opposite party somewhere within this region right here, because we're definitely holding just above a region of support. So hopefully the market can bounce off this region to the upside or possibly end up coming back up, because it seems like the buyers are also starting to come in. Then at least we could try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities somewhere within that region there. So let's just wait and see if we can get the pullback. Also remember the region at the top right there. It's a long shot, but you still can't find the market going all the way back there. If it does, then at least we should be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. So you can see the three regions there that I had pointed out. Also an illustration of what to expect. So you can see that in the morning price was here. We're expecting it to come back in within here, possibly get a reaction of the big sellers before we actually do end up making a move or maybe some sort of a probe. Technically, the market did end up probing within this region because you can see that it broke to the upside, but struggled to move higher than this. Then eventually you can see that the big sellers did really push the market to the downside. This was during the US session. Then you can see that the market rallied down lower before even coming back in within this region for some sort of a retest within there. A bit of whipsaws that were going on this one. But you can see that most of the moves did actually end up happening during the Asian session, which is also something that you will see with most of the currency pairs. Yesterday, I don't know why, for some funny reason, things were not very much active. But today morning, that's when a lot of things have actually started moving. So let's see whether we can get those pullbacks happening. So you can see that the market came down. Let's see if we can at least get the market back within here. If that could end up being the case, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities within that area there. So definitely be having my eyes locked on this region here, but also watch out for the region at the top. You never know how far the pullback could end up coming in. If we do get some sort of a deep pullback, then at least we could potentially try and see whether we could get the sales happening off this region right here. So just make sure that you definitely do also watch out for that region. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also currency pair that we did have yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right here that I had pointed out, also an illustration of possibly what to expect. So in the morning, price was here. It was either price to break to the downside or potentially end up coming back in within here. So you can see that the market rallied up past these regions to the upside quite aggressively. Technically did end up holding to the upside within this particular region here. But you can see that today during the Asian session, that's when the market did actually end up coming in within this region right here. So definitely something with the moves on the yens earlier today morning. And you can see that the pullback did happen just exactly back within this blue SNR that I had pointed out within that region there. So the rest of the levels are more or less the same. The story is the same. The market is more or less being contained within the same regions. So we will be waiting to see what does end up happening. Right now, it seems that the market has breached beneath this region to the downside. However, that breach is not really the best. We possibly do need to see a bit more of the story before we do jump in on any trades, because you could easily find that the market could do something like that. And of course, you know, there are so many guys who are possibly attempting their selling opportunities down within here. And, you know, when you see that the market is giving too much of an opportunity, especially it's just holding to the downside, there's definitely a lot of money that's accumulating within this region. And you could find that the market could easily end up coming back into the upside. Many guys could easily end up getting stopped out, and you could find that the market could come back in within this region before we potentially end up getting a proper selling opportunity. So let's just wait and see what happens. If it does break to the upside and hold above, then I guess we'll have to end up waiting for this region right there. But of course, if we do get some sort of a probe to the upside, so the market goes up, comes back in, then possibly we get a hold here. Visually, you possibly end up seeing signs that the market is attempting to break above that region, but can't. You know, definitely end up getting pin bars and, you know, inside bars and probes within that region. Then potentially you could possibly end up attempting a selling opportunity. The only problem with that is that you'll definitely have to watch out for this region. So it might even be safer to possibly end up waiting for the market to breach beneath this region to the downside before you look for any selling opportunities, because you could easily end up getting stuck within this area right here, and it could end up being a bit frustrating. So just make sure that you really do watch out for that. So let's see what happens on this one. Also watch out for the region at the top. If the market finds its way there, then at least you should also be ready for that. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we do have the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So price was within here. I did point out that we did need to see the market break to the downside and possibly hold. It did come down, but you can't see that unfortunately it couldn't hold within this area right here. You can see that it definitely seems that the market did actually probe to the downside, because it came down, came back up, held within here. And you can see that if you look at the time at exactly 4, which was during the US session open, the market was actually holding to the upside of this region. And it's not surprising to see that the market did actually push itself off this region to the upside. And I know we always keep on pointing out, you know, even if your timing is not really that great, as long as you do watch out for where is the market during the market opening times. And I know we sound like a broken record repeating the times, but it is what it is. So if you do watch out for 11, 4, and 5:30, and watch out for where exactly the price could be. If it's within a region of support, you could find the market pushing itself to the upside. If it's within a region of resistance, there's a probability that the market could push itself to the downside. And the key word there is probability. It's not sure bet. You know, it comes to trading, there's nothing that's sure, but it's just based on the analysis and the analytics that we do have over time and what we've seen over time. So you will find that there's a high probability that the market could potentially end up doing that. So for this one, the market went up. There wasn't much in terms of a sell yesterday, but it seems that today during the Asian session, that's when the big boys decided to push the market to the downside. So we'll wait and see if we can possibly end up getting a pullback. In terms of looking for the selling opportunity right now, might not really be the best of ideas. You could find that maybe during the London session, which is going to be happening at around 11, you could find that the market could technically be pushing itself up the upside of this region, and you could find that hopefully the market finds its way back in somewhere within this region or somewhere as close as possible within there, because there are quite a number of levels here. And you do watch out for the times, let's say at around 4, 5:30, then you possibly could find that maybe that's when the sell might possibly end up happening. So just be patient. But alternatively, in case that doesn't happen, then we'll have to fast wait and see if we can get a breach of this region to the downside. If we do get the breach on the pullback, then we could possibly end up trying to get this sell between this region down, somewhere within here, coming down to within here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also remember the red SNR, in case the market goes all the way high up there and takes out that level, then unfortunately we'll have to be on standby in terms of selling opportunities. So the next currency pair that we're going to be looking at are the euros. So we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, and we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect, a bit of a choppy mess that was going on within this region here. But it was either the market comes down till within here, which it did not, or possibly breaks to the upside of this area and on the pullback, then we could potentially end up trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see that the market broke to the upside, came back in, hit some sort of a probe within here, came up, held within here. But if we did attempt buying opportunities yesterday, unless you are a bit patient in terms of waiting for the trade to actually end up moving, you can see that the trade did actually end up moving earlier today during the Asian session. And you can see that the market is more or less being contained within this region right here. We do have the SNR there, but there's definitely a bunch of sellers who are sitting somewhere within this area here. You can see that the buyers really came up quite aggressively, challenged those sellers within this region here, but you can see that the sellers within this region are more or less holding the buyers who've stepped up within that region there. So for this one, the levels are the same. So let's wait and see what does end up happening. So these are the three areas, and of course, there are definitely lots of SNRs that we can end up pointing out, but in the analysis, we always try and point out the three major levels, because, you know, also to try and keep our analysis clean as opposed to having levels all over the place. So just watch out for these three areas right here. You could potentially find that the market could react, especially if it does get pushed to the downside. There's a possibility you could find the market coming back in within this region here, because you can see that there's some sort of a range that's starting to form within this area. And you can generally see that the buyers are somewhere within this region here. So if the market comes back in, and at least if you do look for the buys down here, then at least you're not off location. So watch out for that. Watch out for this region at the bottom here. Also, you could find the market possibly giving a major reaction coming down. The sellers have reacted off this region before. So it's also something that you should also be aware, and also keep that option open in case it does end up happening and you could find the buys happening off this region. So right now, the game plan that would be there over and above this is to also watch out for this region, which means that even if price seems to be holding above this region to the upside, if you do end up hitting some buying opportunities within this area, there's a possibility it could also end up getting a bit frustrating, because you could easily end up getting caught up in some sort of a range within this region right here. So just make sure that you really do watch out and see if you can possibly end up getting at least the market breaking to the upside of this area before it comes down, and you possibly could look for the buys, as opposed to trying to squeeze yourself in within this region here. It could possibly end up getting a bit messy for you, and you could easily end up getting stopped out before the market does actually end up making a move. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, watch out for the times. If you don't get the market moving during the London session, then you just need to be patient, wait and see what possibly does end up happening during the US session. So the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. Can't see the three levels that I have pointed out. Also illustrations of what possibly to end up expecting. So price was here. It was either the pullback to come in within here or possibly the market to break above this region to the upside. You can see that it did some sort of a weak breach to the upside. It wasn't really the best. Then you can see that during the US session at 4, the market really took off like the space shuttle, to the upside quite aggressively. Then some sort of pullback started coming back within this region here. So we have adjusted the levels on this one accordingly. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So the conservative at the top, semi-aggressive conservative somewhere within this region here, and the aggressive down within this area right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. You can see that the sellers have reacted and they've pushed the market to the downside quite aggressively. So there's a possibility they will be attempting to break their previous record, which is somewhere within this region. If they can't, and the market comes back into the upside, I think then we could potentially end up looking for some very good buying opportunities within this area here. So let's just watch out for that and see what happens. You could also find the pullback coming in deeper. If it does, then at least just make sure that you're really watching out for this level here. There could possibly end up being a minor level somewhere within this region here. So we'll have to see how far they can end up going, especially if the buyers are a bit reluctant in terms of their reaction within that region. You can see that the sellers have come in quite hot with this move coming in. So there's a possibility you could find that there could be some sort of a clash happening within this region here. You could find spikes and such kind of things happening within this area here. But generally, at least if the market holds above that level there, I think there could be some very good buys that might be happening off that region. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So the next one, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have also gotten some buying opportunities as well. So you can see the three regions and also illustrations of what to expect. In the morning, price was here. We're expecting price to move to the upside, come back in, possibly give us some sort of price action signal or something to tell us to look for the buying opportunities. But you can see that there was a lot of mess that was going on within here. So the market went up, pulled back in aggressively, did some sort of a probe within here, because generally you can see that the market came down, held within this region for an extended period of time, but the market wasn't moving. It's only earlier today during the Asian session that the market really took off to the upside. So also this one did actually end up needing a lot of patience if you did end up taking the setup. So let's see if we can get the pullback coming in on this one today, and hopefully we get something moving on this one. So we'll have to wait and see if we can get the pullback happening. Right now, in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, might not really be the best. I mean, even if you do end up taking the buy and it does end up working, then I guess you're just lucky. If you do end up repeating such kind of trades, maybe 10 times, you'll find that most of them are actually going to be losses. So just make sure that you do actually end up waiting for the market to come back in. There's a possibility we could get the market pulling back in and giving us some sort of a retest within this region. Reason being, if you do end up going up to a higher time frame, you will see that the market breached this region to the upside. And this was quite a significant level. It's even quite visible, especially on the 1 hour time frame. So the fact that the market has broken to the upside, the market seems to be in some sort of a trend. You can see that every time the market breaks a level, it always comes back and gives some sort of a retest. So market structure is always important, when you're timing your entries. So there's a high probability we could get the market coming back in within that mid-level right there. If it does, then at least I think there could be some very good buying opportunities that might be happening off this region here. But in case the market doesn't pull back in, of course, remember, we just try to analyze to the best of our ability, but the market has a mind of its own. So in case the market doesn't pull back, then we'll generally have to wait and see if we can get a breach to the upside. If the market moves up higher, then possibly gives us some proper pullback, then we could potentially try and see whether we could look for some buying opportunities within this area here. But also there's a bit of added risk. You can see that the buyers came up quite aggressively, but the sellers were actually able to shut them down. You can see those wicks that are happening within that area. So I would say if you're going to look for buys there, you're more or less within some sort of a kill zone. So you could easily end up going against the sellers, and you could easily end up getting injured. So just make sure that you're a bit careful on that. So last but not least, for the euro pairs, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. There wasn't much of a move on this one. So in the morning, price was here. We were really expecting price to come back in within here. It did not. You can see that the market continued rallying up, broke above this region to the upside and held for an extended period of time, and technically still does seem to be holding above this region to the upside, although you can see that the market is really choppy and really messy within that region there. So there's a possibility price could still be coming back in within here. And of course, the reason why we still do end up having that bias is because you can see that the market had broken above that region to the upside. And when it did, never really pulled back in within here. Maybe that's what the buyers do actually need before they actually do end up continuing to push the market up higher. So we'll have to wait and see if we can get some sort of a pullback coming in within this region here, same area as yesterday, then hopefully maybe we might actually end up getting the market really moving to the upside. So you can see that even if the buyers did push to the upside, a lot of people have definitely been thrown into confusion within this area here. So you can imagine so many people attempting their buying opportunities there, but the buyers are not really working, so they don't know what's in store. Definitely the big boys always keep their cards so close to their chest. So when all the guys are hitting buys here and the stop losses that they're putting within this region, the big boys might easily end up coming in, possibly take them out. Maybe a good number of them might start to look for selling opportunities. And once they end up losing sight of what the overall trajectory of what the market is, then that's when the market is possibly going to end up moving to the upside. So it could be a double loss that might be staring at many traders here, but at least you did end up coming in for the daily analysis, so you're well informed in terms of what you should be doing. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euro pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the NZD pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So make sure that you do end up taking note of them. Can see that some sort of a pullback is starting to happen. Yesterday, the market was moving down, although in a very choppy manner, bounced off this region. So you'll definitely have to watch out for that area. Right now, we have some sort of a pullback coming in, which is good. So let's just see if we can get maybe the buyers slowing down within there, signs of big sellers possibly showing up within that particular region. And I think it could be go time in terms of looking for the selling opportunities. So watch out for that. Watch out for the region at the top. In case the market finds its way there, then at least we should also be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So these are the three areas that we've mapped out. You can see that the market did actually end up taking off to the upside quite aggressively, went up. Then you can see that some sort of a hold and some sort of a range that's happening here. This one seems similar to, I think, the euro against the US dollar. You can see some good correlation that's happening. So if you do see a move on one, make sure that you also do end up looking at the other. You could easily end up possibly even getting both, and definitely that will end up increasing your profit potential. So do watch out for these three areas right here. Right now, the sellers are coming in hot. You can see that they came in quite aggressively. The buyers retaliated. The market did end up coming back up all the way till within there. But there's a possibility the sellers might be attempting to come in lower, just to try and see if they can end up breaching their previous record. But at least if they do end up getting contained, then at least I think you could look for the buying opportunities, because you could easily jump in on buys here. And I've been caught up in such kind of things before, where you take the buy there, put your stop loss here, the market just comes in, just looking for a price just lower than this. You just possibly end up just getting stopped out, and you just end up just getting caught before the market actually moves to the upside. So to avoid that, you could potentially end up waiting for that spike to first end up happening. If it does and the market comes back in, I think if you do look for the buys within here, then at least that point in time, you will be much, much safer. So watch out for that, but also watch out for the red SNR. In case the market gives a deeper pullback, then at least we know that the red SNR is going to be the last area where we will be attempting our aggressive buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So you can see that the market has been moving up, which is good. So we'll just wait and see if we can get the pullback coming in within here. Market seems to be in some sort of a trend that means that the best buys potentially could be somewhere within this region here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. If we do get the slowdown of the sellers and the buyers now starting to really show up, then just be ready for that region. Also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. Potentially also could be a region, if we do get the deeper pullback coming in, maybe the buyers do need to incite more sellers to come in. And of course, by the time the market starts to calm down or possibly comes down to within this region, a lot of people are definitely going to be stopped out on the buys, especially those who are hitting buys within this region. And a good number of them will definitely turn into sellers. And once they do end up doing that, then I guess the big boys have found the money that they needed, and you could find that the market could easily end up taking off from that region quite aggressively. So last but not least, for the NZD pairs, this is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So right now the market is pulling back in within this area. You can see that earlier today, that same region, the sellers had reacted off from. The buyers are coming in much slower than they had the previous time. If you compare this and this, you can definitely see signs of weakness, which is good. So we just need to see what does end up happening within this area. If the sellers do end up reacting and we do see a sharp reaction of the sellers within that region, then I guess we could potentially try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities within here. So watch out for this region right here on your way down. You could easily find that the buyers could potentially end up reacting off this region here. But at least if you do some money management there, even if you will be targeting areas much, much lower, that should be perfectly fine. So watch out for the region at the top as well. In case the market finds its way there, then at least we do know that that's going to be the last area where we will be attempting our aggressive selling opportunities. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are the CHF pairs, and we're going to mix them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. You can see that the sellers and the big boys have already started coming in during the Asian session. So we'll see if, hopefully, if the London big boys will potentially keep that momentum going, and also the US big boys as well. So right now the market has breached this region to the downside. You can see that the market came down, came back in within here, tempted with the two probes to possibly break to the upside, but you can see that the market is more or less still coming down. So you could find that potentially there could be some good selling opportunities that could end up happening here. For those of you that are aggressive traders like me, could find that maybe the market could potentially end up coming to the downside of that region there, coming down. But now the only problem is that coming downhill within here, you can see that that risk to reward is only a 1:4.7, which is not really the best. So unless maybe we do get a bit more of the story happening within here, let's say we do get another attempt of the buyers to possibly end up coming up, then the sellers do end up shutting them down, within this region here. Let's say the market goes up, can't even go higher than this, then does end up coming down and the market holds within here. I think at that point in time, even if you do end up bringing in your stop loss a bit lower, you can see that the risk to reward does actually end up becoming a bit much, much better. So, when it comes to trading, timing is everything. So let's see what happens on this one. But of course, in case the buyers do end up reacting and the market does end up going up higher, all the way to within here, definitely the trade from all the way high up within this region will definitely end up giving us way more profit potential, because we will still be targeting all the way down to within this region. So it's all a matter of just waiting to see what does end up happening. But of course, if you do look at the smaller time frame and get the detail, of what's happening within here, then potentially you could find some sort of a trade might possibly end up happening off this region. But the only reason why you also need to be a bit careful on this one is if you look at the reaction of this seller, when you look at this move coming down, this is not quite the big boy, which means that they came down quite aggressively. They've slowed down within here. It's a matter of just waiting to see what happens during the London session open to possibly see if we'll get a sign of the big boys coming in. But potentially could definitely be something that's cooking on that one. So just make sure that you watch out to see if you potentially can end up getting a good trade on that one. So moving on into the next one. This is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, for today, it's a new currency pair, but we'll be trying to see whether we can get selling opportunities on this one. Can't see that the market came down aggressively yesterday. The buyers are giving the sellers issues within this region here. Can't see that during the Asian session, they pushed up quite aggressively. The sellers have slowed down. The buyers seem to be coming in, possibly attempting to do their thing. There's a possibility we could get the market coming back in within here before we do get some sort of a slowdown. So let's see what happens. There's a high probability price could be coming back in within here, especially just looking at how the buyers are coming up. They might attempt to go up a bit higher than this. Maybe many guys who are looking for sales here, stop losses could be there. Bit of stop loss hunting that could be going on this one. So let's just wait and see what happens. You could find that maybe during the US session, after the market does all of this, maybe price could be somewhere within here after it does all this during the London session. And maybe from around 5:30, that's when you could find that maybe the market could give a good opportunity. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the top in case the deep pullback does end up coming in, because we don't know how far the pullback could end up coming in. So we just need to keep that option open. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be watching out for sells. You can see that the sellers have come in quite aggressive during the Asian session. The market has found some sort of a support region within this area here. In terms of looking for sells, right now is not really the best of ideas because you can't quite tell what the big boys are up to. There's a possibility we could get the reaction coming off that region and we get some sort of a retest coming in within this area here. If we do get something possibly looking like that, then I think maybe we could get some good selling opportunity on this one. So watch out for that region there. Also watch out for this region at the top here. Consider there was a major reaction of the buyers within this area. You know, the sellers came down aggressively, but they were still able to be contained within this region. That means that there are definitely buyers within this area here. And you don't know if maybe the market is just waiting for the London market open to give some sort of a pullback to come back in, either within here or somewhere within that region. We just need to be patient. But even if you're going to be looking for selling opportunities, let's say the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, you definitely need to be very careful because within this area here, especially with those wicks that are happening within this area, it generally tells us that there are definitely buyers who are sitting within that area, which means that your selling opportunity could easily be dead on arrival. So you could easily end up getting stopped out the moment that you jump in. So be very careful on this one. But at least if we do get the pullback coming in, at least till that center region or higher, then at least that might be much, much better. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. I hope you can see some sort of correlation that's happening amongst the CHF pairs. You can see that all of them did actually end up making a move during the Asian session, which is good. It shows that at least if you do see something on one, you definitely can end up looking at the others. And of course, if you do see moves also happening on the others, then it generally will mean that the big boys are definitely back in the game. And at least if you look for opportunities, then there's a high probability that your trades could potentially end up working out. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get sells. It seems like the sell is taking off. I would best advise you not to end up jumping in on the sell now, because I know that there are very many people who are seeing this red candle here and they're thinking that the bus is leaving and you think it might be a good idea to hit the sell now. Wait for price to actually end up coming back in within this region. If you look at the location of where you're hitting your sell, you're generally hitting your sell within a buyer's region. If I do put an SNR within here, you can generally see that the market has pushed to the upside a number of times off this area. So you could easily hit the sell there only to actually end up getting stopped out when the market comes back in within here. And you'll be wondering, why couldn't you just wait? So just wait for the market to give you some sort of a pullback. If it comes back in within there, then at least we could potentially end up looking for the sell. And I think there's a high probability you could get the market reacting off there. So just be a bit patient on that. Let's see if we can get that pullback happening on this one. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. The guys who've joined us late, feel free to take note of that. So we can end up moving on to the indices and the commodities. You can see that there isn't much of a change on that front. So we're going to start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. These are the three areas I had mapped out. Also an illustration of illustrations of what to expect. So price was here. It was either price to break to the upside and hold above for us to look for the buys. It did break to the upside, but you can see that the market struggled to hold within this area, came down, there was a high probability price was going to come back in within this area, because we had seen on the higher time frame, after the breach did actually end up happening, we're expecting some sort of a reaction or some sort of a retest to come back in within that region. You can see that the market did actually end up doing that. This was earlier today during the Asian session. It just tapped back within that area quite fast, and you can see that there was some sort of a reaction within there. Unfortunately, that just couldn't happen yesterday, but we were generally expecting that to happen. So it's not surprising. I think the only surprising thing is the timing at which it did end up happening, because the indices and the commodities do tend to move a lot during the US session. But this one did end up moving back in within this area during the Asian session. So I don't know if maybe the big boys in the US were possibly watching the inauguration of Trump yesterday. I think it's only today that they possibly jumped in on the trades, maybe much later on. And maybe that's the reason why the markets, possibly a good number of them did actually move during the Asian session. So for this one, the levels are the same. Don't look for the buying opportunities now. You still can't find the market coming back in within here. If it does, then at least you could look for your buying opportunities here. If it breaks to the upside, then at least then we could potentially end up looking for the buys high above this area. So the price is more or less within the same region where it was yesterday. So the game plan still remains as what it was. So if we get something like that, then at least we can try and see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the US 30 or the Dow Jones. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to also see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Also an illustration similar to the NAS 100. So price went up, broke to the upside, struggled to hold within this region. We're expecting a pullback back within here. And you can also see on this one, the pullback that we're expecting yesterday came in earlier today. And you can see the sort of reaction that did end up happening off that area. So let's see if we can get, hopefully, another reaction coming in off this region right here at the top. And if we can get the sellers pushing the market to the downside and the market comes back in somewhere as close as possible within here, then we could potentially look for the buys. But just looking at it, I think we can also end up having that extra level within there. If you look at the number of times the market has tapped within here, pushed to the upside, come back in, you can see some sort of a probe within that area. So that means that there's some sort of a true SNR within this area. So even if the market doesn't come back in within this region and we get something like that, I think if we do look for the buying opportunities somewhere within this region, of course, once you get that turnaround, then I think that might also not be too bad of an idea. So just watch out for that. But also remember the region at the bottom. In case the market gives a deep pullback, that's the last area we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. But remember that in case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, for the indices and the commodities, we can actually end up switching the bias and start looking for selling opportunities if we do get the confirmation that the market is actually holding to the downside. So the next one, silver. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions and also an extra region right there that I had pointed out where we could have potentially managed our trades. So in the morning, price was here. Remember, I put this level here and I pointed out it's not a good idea to look for the buying opportunities here, considering the fact that the market had started to range. And you generally can't see that that was a good idea. So the sellers came down, and you can see that off this region, that's where the buyers did actually end up starting to push to the upside. But you can see that there was a massive wick somewhere down within this region here. I know that a lot of people must have been caught up with that, but the buyers still did end up remaining. And you can see that the market did push itself off that region to the upside, held within this area, attempted to come up higher, and you can see another dip down back within this region ended up happening earlier today. So something similar with the NAS 100 and the US 30, and after that, you can see that the market has continued to push up. So for this one, the levels are the same. Already the market seems to have already come back in within this area, so you can get rid of that region. So let's see if we can get the market possibly continuing to hold above here, maybe an attempt to possibly come to the downside. If that ends up being unsuccessful and the market continues to hold above, I think if we do end up looking for some buying opportunities there, I think we should be good, because it would mean that these sellers within this region have technically been exhausted. And once that ends up being the case, I think they will give way for these buyers to continue pushing the market to the upside. So watch out for that. Let's see what happens. If the market doesn't move during the London session, then I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens maybe during the US session. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, yesterday the buyers was to try to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. The buys what happened at least somewhere off this region here, but you can't see the 3 years and also the illustrations that I had pointed out. And I did mention that it wasn't such a good idea to look for the buys within here, unless the market did possibly end up coming to the downside and hold above here for us to look for the buys. And generally, you can't see that the market was actually holding off this area here. You can see the number of times the sellers attempted to go lower than this, and they couldn't, and the buyers really contained and held their ground, within that region there. But it's only today during the Asian session, similar with the rest of the indices and the commodities that we've looked at, that's when the market really took off to the upside. So for this one, the levels are the same. The market seems to have broken above this area to the upside, but we do need to see more in terms of the story. So in case the market does end up attempting to come down, there's a possibility it could come back in within this region for some sort of a retest. If it holds above here, you could look for some safe buying opportunities here. For those of you that are really good at trading and you're real cowboys on the charts like me, potentially, if you do know how to read the story of what does end up happening on a smaller time frame within this area here, you potentially could really end up getting some really good buying opportunity off this region here, but you'll have to generally watch out for this area, especially if the market comes back in quite slow within this area. You really need to get ready to come out of that trade, because you could find that there could be a major reaction that could be coming in, and you could find the market back in within this area. So just make sure that you're really careful, but at least if you do get the buy, at least somewhere within there, or in case the market does end up giving a much deeper pullback, because there's a possibility it can come back in somewhere within this area here, to possibly end up unlocking a lot of money that was possibly left within this area, especially the guys who are possibly attempting sales when the market went to the upside. It might be their last chance to possibly end up coming out of those trades at break even. So the market might possibly end up giving that opportunity and that option. If that does end up happening, then I guess some very good buys could technically end up happening off here. But on your way up, just make sure that you watch out for this region. It's not a major level, but it being a level that's also quite visible should also give you that sort of a warning that maybe you could find the market turning off this area here. So it's always better to be ready for something so that you don't get surprises on the charts. Lots of people get surprised. You take a trade and you get surprised when the opposite party comes in. But it's more or less given because remember, there are always two teams when it comes to trading. There are buyers and sellers. There are only two. When the market is going up, definitely the opposite party will try to come in and interfere with your trade. So you always need to be ready for that. And that's the reason why we always point out that money management is very key when it comes to trading. And that's what differentiates, the men from the boys or the ladies or the girls from the women. So you really need to make sure that you're really on top of things, when it comes to money management, and making sure that you have the predetermined levels of where you need to exit. Like I always point out, it's like when you're driving, you can't just overtake if you can't see, if you have a proper exit plan. So when it comes to trading, it's the same thing. Many people look for entries, but unfortunately, they don't really pay much attention to the exit plan, which is very important. And that's the reason why you find that a lot of people do actually end up getting demoralized, because you take trades, you're always having blues running on your MT5. But when you look at your history, that money is not there. It's not translating. It's just pure losses, but you always have wins running. So just make sure that in as much as you're watching out for your entries, make sure that you also do end up watching out for your exits and give them equal attention as well. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So in case, let me see on the chat box, there isn't anything, which is okay. I guess everything is perfectly clear. But in case it isn't, definitely feel free to rewatch this broadcast. And of course, our contact details are definitely there on the video description. So in case you do need any help, also feel free to reach out to us and we'll see how best we can end up helping you. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So have a lovely day on the charts and everything else that you do end up doing. And I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in the morning. So with that, happy trading, guys. And bye for now. The peeps be with you. God bless.